Welcome back to What Brought You Here Today. On today's episode, I sit down with Eric Peterson, a professional clinical counselor and alcohol and drug counselor. He's also the owner of Catalyst Insight Collective. Eric takes a holistic approach to his practice and is bringing awareness to psychedelic-assisted treatments and provides these services in Minnesota. This episode does discuss psychedelic drugs used for therapeutic purposes, including ketamine and MDMA. Please take care while listening. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to What Brought You Here Today. My name is Ryan. I am your host, and today I am joined by Eric Peterson. He is a fellow clinician in Minnesota, and I met Eric through a post that I put out on Facebook looking for podcast interviewees. So I will let you take it away, Eric, and let the listeners know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Eric Peterson. I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor, LPCC license, and then I also have my alcohol and drug counseling license, LADC. I have my master's degree in counseling and psychological services from St. Mary's University, and then I also have a bachelor's degree in psychology from Bethel University. So right now I own a clinic called Catalyst Insight Collective. And we really mainly focus on a type of therapy called psychedelic assisted psychotherapy with a specific focus on ketamine as a medicine to assist the therapy process, which we can get into a little bit more. So yeah, vote me. I also have a dog named Harley that I love, and I like to rollerblade and run and kayak. I like to be outdoors. Yeah.
Oh, nice. What kind of dog?
Standard poodle. So hoping to train her to be a therapy dog when she's out of her puppy stage.
How old is she?
She's about 1.5 years right now.
Okay. Still very much puppy.
Yep.
Yeah. So how did you get into ketamine assisted therapy or psychedelic assisted therapy?
Yeah. I'll actually I love telling my story. So I'll kind of start it was about when I was 15. I had a friend that was struggling with some mental health. I went to my high school counselor and I was just like, what do I do with this? And we talked for about an hour. And I left that conversation going, I want to be a counselor. So it's kind of been my goal from a young age has been to be a counselor. I then went to college and I kind of had this direction, wanted to do psychology. And I had a professor named Adam Johnson at Bethel University. And it was my sophomore year and I didn't know what I wanted to write my paper on. And I went into his office and he said, they're using magic mushrooms at Johns Hopkins University to treat tobacco addiction. And I went, what is all this about? I've heard of psychedelics before, a lot of kind of the stigma around it, that they're bad for you. There's no healing potential to them. And I kind of dove into this research study. And what I discovered was that 12 of the 15 participants, after having 3 of these mushroom sessions, the actual chemical name is psilocybin, they didn't use tobacco for 6 months. And so I went, wait, they had this experience and then they stopped using tobacco for 6 months. And so that kind of got me interested in that. Then I was able to realize I can combine these psychedelic medicines with psychotherapy in this specific context to help people heal, change the way they think about themselves, to change patterns of behavior, to really kind of connect with their values and what's important to them. And that was about 10 years ago. And so it's always kind of been just my goal and my mission is to pay attention to the research. I then realized I had to go to grad school to get my master's degree. So that was kind of my plan as well. And then I've always had this plan of just having my own clinic focused around using these medicines combined with psychotherapy.
I'm so fascinated by by psychedelic assisted therapy. I know that it's maybe been going on behind the scenes for a while, right? For a very long time and in other cultures. And it's really starting to emerge here, especially in the United States. And I think in Minnesota too, there's been a lot of clinics pop up and a lot of chatter about it. Can you walk us through the process of what that looks like?
Yeah. So let's see here. Maybe we could just start with what the word psychedelic even means and what the West, a lot of this is from a Western perspective. I think it's important to name that a lot of plant medicines have been used within indigenous cultures for hundreds, thousands of years. So using these medicines within a healing context is nothing new. Within kind of the Western psychotherapy world, it is relatively new. So the word psychedelic means mind manifesting. So maybe you've heard of LSD or acid or mushrooms, or maybe you've heard of ayahuasca or MDMA, all these different medicines that can kind of fall under the term psychedelic. Okay. And so what we're doing is we're using these medicines to help people have an experience that allows them to heal, to change the way they think about themselves, to maybe gain a different perspective on themselves, really to help them kind of create new habits around more wellness and health and kind of holistic healing. So the whole process of just what like this type of therapy looks like is somebody might reach out to us. We do an initial screening just to kind of get an idea of what their expectations are, their hopes, their goals. If we feel like we want to move forward, then what we do is we do the preparation phase. So we spend a few sessions preparing them for this experience. A lot of the preparation phase is around developing the therapeutic relationship, teaching them kind of what to expect, going over some of their intentions and goals and hopes. So it's really allowing them just to understand kind of what this therapy is about. Once we feel like they're prepared, they feel like they're prepared, we then go ahead with the what we call an active medicine session. Now, right now, the only psychedelic that's legally available is called ketamine. That's really what a lot of clinics are focusing on. So once they have their active medicine session, that actually looks like is they're laying in a chair, they have eye shades on, blankets on them. It's a very comfy, cozy, safe environment. And then we have music as well. So we really focus on the setting, the physical environment. We want it to be calming, relaxing. We want them to feel safe. And they also have their mindset that they're going into the session with, right? Their mindset is really their intentions, what they're wanting different in their life, some of the feelings that they're experiencing before they take the active medicine. And then what the therapist is doing is we're really just holding space for them. And really what the person is doing is they're going inwards with their experience. And what can happen is people might have like past memories just start to pop up, maybe certain emotions and feelings that they tend to repress and push away start to come up to the surface. And what the medicine does is it allows them to fully experience these emotions and feelings without so much fear. Okay. So that's really important. It kind of takes that fear edge off of experiencing some of these difficult feelings, emotions, and past memories. And what it does, it allows them to really then be able to look at maybe some of these past memories from a different lens, from just a different point of view, to kind of change the way they think about it. And the therapist there is really following the patient's inward process. And so a lot of it is just maybe sitting in silence, tuning into the patient's body and their nervous system, checking in every once in a while to see kind of what they're experiencing. Patient might want to talk for some of the session. They might want to just focus inwards for part of the session. So it's not really like your typical standard psychotherapy session. And after the person has their experience, what we then do is what we call the integration process. And the integration process is where you kind of take what the person learned from their experience and apply it into their everyday life to kind of focus on different changes and habits that they want to make. So you can kind of think of it in three stages. We prepare them for the experience, they have their psychedelic experience, and then we help them integrate their experience into new patterns of thinking, behaving, and relating to other people in the world around them.
Is the experience, are they focusing on one specific thing, similar to maybe EMDR or like another traumatic event, for example? Or is it just what is coming up we're working through?
It's really whatever's coming up we're working through. So we have people set what we call an intention before the session. Maybe the
Okay.
intention is something simple like I want to heal or I want to become more social. So before they take the medicine, they set this intention and we kind of just set it aside, right? So we're not really forcing or controlling the experience or trying to think about a specific thing. We just let whatever comes up in the present moment come up. And then there's just this trust that whatever is coming up, we can process it and work through it. Whatever happens during their experience often is related back to their intention. So they might have an insight or a realization or like, I need to do this differently with my life. I had one patient where kind of towards the end of the session, he kind of realized, oh, I think the last thing I need to do to kind of focus on treating my depression is focusing on like sleep and nutrition and kind of these everyday habits. And that was like his big revelation that he had. And then we take that and we kind of integrate it into what does that actually look like in everyday life. So it's very kind of present moment focused. Whatever's coming up, we just work with it. And usually it's related back to that intention that they set at the beginning of the session.
Very cool. What is the mechanism? I understand that the psychedelic is, brain altering and does alter some chemistry likely there, but with your client, for example, who was realizing that sleep and nutrition is important, right? We teach these skills in maybe basic standard psychotherapy. What causes it to maybe click a little differently with this?
Hmm, it's a good question. The first answer is I don't know.
Fair.
My my second answer is that I think part of it is that people get an outsider's perspective. So really kind of what can happen is people can kind of zoom out on their life and look
Okay.
at like the way they're living their life from like more of an objective view or just a different point of view. So this perspective shift and really kind of this subjective experience of a perspective shift really helps them to kind of realign their focus in life. And it really allows them to kind of zoom out and be like, is the way I'm living my life how I want to live my life? Like, is what I'm focusing my attention on really that important to me? Do I really need to get annoyed or irritable about these little things? And so they're able to kind of see the big picture and really able to then kind of realign just their point of view of their life on really what is important to them and what they need to focus on. So it really kind of can get people out of their head, kind of get them out of these rigid thought patterns that people can get stuck on, and just give a different perspective shift or a different point of view. When people can have that experience of just a different point of view, typically it can stick with them, and that can then allow them to kind of move forward in new directions. So maybe that's actually my first answer
Yeah.
to your question.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the perspective shift is huge. Then maybe like a bird's eye view of how they're living their life, kind
Yeah.
of. How
Yep.
long does a session last?
So a typical session lasts anywhere from 2 hours to 3 hours. So they're
Okay.
a little bit longer sessions. Each person is unique. When we're working with ketamine, it depends on the route of administration we use. We use the intramuscular route of ketamine. Those sessions are about 2 hours. If we use the sublingual route of ketamine, which dissolves in their mouth, typically those might last 3 hours or a little bit longer. So we're a little bit longer sessions than maybe your standard psychotherapy session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is happening physically to the body during this experience?
Yeah, so with ketamine specifically, a lot of things can happen. Typically, ketamine can put people into a very like relaxed state. It is just a little bit about ketamine. It's classified as a dissociative anesthetic. So it's originally was used in anesthesia. When we're using it in a therapy setting, we're using it in sub-anesthetic doses, so the person is still aware of what's happening. What ketamine does is it can really put people into this relaxed state or their body feels very relaxed, their breathing might feel relaxed, their muscles might start to feel relaxed. And what can happen then is sometimes people might start to feel like anxious, or maybe like people start to feel angry. Their body gets really hot, but there's still like this relaxing feeling that also is happening at the same time. So it's like they're feeling anxious or panicky, but also calm at the same time. I had one patient during a session where he just started to feel like panicky. And his typical kind of reaction to that is try to avoid this feeling and do all these things to kind of get rid of this panicky feeling. But he was able to just sit with this feeling. And kind of what he said is that this was the most calm I've ever felt while panicked at the same time. And kind of what he was able to learn through this experience is that if I'm going through my day to day life and I'm experiencing this anxious, panicky feeling, it's not something that I have to be so afraid of. I can experience it, I can accept it, I can sit with it, and I can allow myself to still feel calm through this anxiety and this panic that I'm experiencing.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's the only word I have for that. What an amazing opportunity to be able to have that, though, and to be able to realize and accept that those things can exist together and that you can move through the feelings of panic in a calm way.
Mhm.
And I imagine that's very healing for the patient.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very, we really like to focus on the body and kind of, obviously, the body is where a lot of things are happening for people, and people's bodies can be a terrifying place. And one thing that I love about this ketamine work is that it can teach people what it feels like to feel safe in their body. And it can teach people kind of even what it feels like to love their body, to feel calm in their body. And it can give people just this experience that then they can build off of right? A lot of people are just so used to feeling anxious, terrified, afraid all the time. And when people have these ketamine sessions, they're like, whoa, I can feel safe in my body. I can feel calm. Like, this is what feeling relaxed, this is what feeling joy is like. And then what we do then is then that's kind of what we focus on in integration, like how to help people kind of connect with their bodies and to feel safer in their bodies.
And is that more a standard psychotherapy dynamic?
Yep. So kind of the integration sessions are really more standard
Mhm.
psychotherapy, a lot of processing of what came up in the ketamine session, and then also maybe teaching different skills and getting creative on kind of how to reinforce some of these positive changes that might come from the session.
During this session, if someone gets stuck, maybe that doesn't happen, but what does the therapist is there to kind of guide them out of it, or do we just naturally let them explore that?
Yeah, great question. We just let them explore that. So that can
Okay.
happen. Sometimes people might feel stuck, or sometimes what happens, they might nothing's happening, or they might start to get bored. Like sometimes ketamine, there's a lot that's happening, there's a little that's happening, and sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes people are just like in this kind of floaty state and there's no like colors or visuals, or maybe they feel like stuck. And what we do is we just have them explore that, right? So then we have them tap into their curious part of themselves. And usually what will happen is once they start to just kind of accept that there's this stuckness or nothing is happening, and they can just learn to be patient with it. We use the phrase, don't get ahead of the medicine, kind of being patient with the effects of the ketamine, just like really going slow. Something typically will shift then, and it'll kind of shift into a different part of the experience. And I
Okay.
think there's a lot to learn from that, because I think, especially within our society, we're always on to the next thing. We're always anticipating. And it's hard for us just to kind of sit still and be present. And that's one thing that can happen with these sessions, is people can learn kind of what it's like just to be present in the moment with themselves, even if nothing is happening. Maybe they're always used to something happening.
Right.
And so as the therapist, we just have them kind of explore that, I guess.
Have you seen in your experience maybe a highly anxious person? Is there a certain maybe mental health symptom that really is a hindrance to this therapy?
Yeah, so typically we like to go slow and cautious with people. If somebody's really anxious, we do a very low dose of ketamine to start off with so people don't get overwhelmed. So that's kind of how we determine the dosing that we use, the frequency of sessions is really kind of each individual person's unique situations. We take a very individualistic approach. And then if somebody is highly anxious, we just go really slow. We do a lower dose of ketamine. I might choose music that's very relaxing and calming. So it really can give this person this kind of slow, relaxing experience. We teach people just different breathing techniques as well if they start to feel anxious during the session. Like that's kind of the preparation piece. We go, if this happens, if you feel overwhelmed or anxious, here's what we can do. So that's kind of the part of the preparation work, is we help the person learn like what to do in these situations if they start to feel anxious or overwhelmed.
What's an average amount of sessions?
So it's typically anywhere from on the low end of 3 sessions to maybe 12 sessions. Some people
Okay.
choose to go longer. So typically treatment is around 4 to 6 months. We might do an initial series of sessions, 3 to 5 to 6 sessions within a 2 to 3 week period or so. And then we start to space them out. We call them booster sessions. We might then do maybe every other week or once every 3 weeks or once a month. Some people do a series of sessions and they kind of got what they needed. Some people choose to kind of keep going on with sessions because it's just helping them. A lot of people that are maybe in a situation where they're very stressed out with work, life, parenting duties, they typically tend to want to do a session like once every 4 to 6 weeks. The effects of ketamine usually last about 3 weeks to 4 weeks. And so it can kind of just allow people just to feel a little bit more relaxed during these stressful periods. And so we kind of allow the patient to really be able to become informed on frequency of sessions and what's best for them. So we do a lot of teaching about how ketamine is helpful for them so they can make informed decisions on when they want to do sessions and what's best for their situation.
Okay. I had no idea that the effects lingered for that length of time.
Yeah, and it's depends on each person. That's kind of on the high end. The
Okay.
initial sessions with ketamine, sometimes people might experience the effects for about maybe a few days up to 1 or 2 weeks. So that's why we do those initial series of sessions. So there's this cumulative effect that kind of builds up to the effects lasting about 3 to 4 weeks. I should name that. So right away, having just 1 or 2 sessions, usually those effects might last a few days to 1 to 2 weeks. And so that's why we do that initial series of sessions, because the cumulative effect tends to build on each other over those weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a very big question. Even
Yeah.
one that I've been asked is maybe just like your very basic LPCC outpatient therapy. Like, is there a success rate? What does the success look like in this type of treatment?
Mhm. I don't have exact data on it. So within the research, specifically, if we're going to focus on ketamine, a lot of the research is just ketamine infusions where there is no therapy involved. And that's success rate is about 70%.
Okay.
Just from, again, I don't have exact data on this. I would say about within our clinic, 80 to 85% is a number that I would see where people come, they have their session, they feel like they reach their treatment goals. And so we're very upfront with people about like expectations and what to expect. When it comes to these psychedelic medicines, there can be this media narrative that you have 1 or 2 sessions and that's all you need. And you're going to have this big breakthrough and everything's going to be great. What we found is that's not really the case. We really focus on ongoing therapy and that integration process. And so some people don't benefit from it. And that's what we tell people. Sometimes maybe this isn't what you're looking for. Maybe this isn't helpful. But we found that a lot of people that come to us is that they've tried all sorts of different medications, therapy for however many years, all these other techniques, and nothing's really helped them. And ketamine seems to be the thing that stuck. So it's cool. We hear a lot of success stories of people who have been trying to treat their depression and PTSD with all these other modalities, and they try ketamine and it seems to work from them.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Okay.
I think I think it's always hard to put a number on anything therapy related, right? Where we typically don't practice from a medical model that is like you break a bone, you fix the bone, there's your success rate. It's very different when working with the mind and the body, but I think it's just curious to know what you determine as success in this type of treatment of people's reports and maybe seeing them like showing up for their sessions, maybe brighter, calmer, more engaged, less anxious, whatever it may be. So yeah, you answered the question. Great.
Yeah.
Wait,
And that's kind of oh,
no, go ahead.
well, I was gonna say, and that's kind of what kind of a lot of what I reported off of is kind of what people want, and a lot of people want they want to be more socially engaged. They want to go do their creative activities. They want to feel calm. They don't want to always be in their head. And those are the big things that I notice is after people have kind of go through this process of ketamine therapy is they're more present. They're more present with other people. This is what they report. There's less ruminating about the past or worried about the future. There's more of a willingness to try new things, to try new experiences. Their creative activities that they've been pushing off, people start to draw, run, bike, kind of do these activities more. There's less isolation. So that's a lot of what I just view as kind of success is people just being more engaged with their life and doing the things that are important to them. We're very big on values and figuring out what's important to you. And once people kind of put those in motion, we tend to see that there's a lot of benefit from that.
That's so cool. I imagine that's very fulfilling. Like to to walk with people as they kind of re-entry into their life the way that they want it to be. Why do you think psychedelic assisted therapy has become so, I don't know, romanticized, maybe blown up in the media?
This is, this is a big question. So it's been interesting. Like I said, I kind of got involved with psychedelics about 10 years ago, a little under 10 years. So around the time of 2018, 2019, Michael Pollan wrote a book called How to Change Your Mind.
Yeah.
And that really is when psychedelics became more mainstream. A lot of people started reading about psychedelics, learning about psychedelics. So that was really like a big kind of turning point. Where previously, before that, there really was still a pretty strong stigma. So that was a big, as far as like the general public getting involved. Now, living in a capitalist world where people want to make money, a lot of people kind of saw psychedelics and the mental health field as this money making grab. So there's been a lot of just push from these larger corporations to push psychedelic medicines on people, to get a lot of investors to invest money in the use of psychedelics for financial gain. So that's been a big push as well. And I think a lot of it also is just the stigma around it has significantly reduced. There's just a lot more openness talking about psychedelics. So I think there's a few things. The general public is more open to psychedelics. There's been a lot of push from media and large corporations around the benefits of psychedelics and what they can do for people. As far as the romanticizing, I think, again, that kind of goes back to our culture of wanting a quick fix of people's issues and problems, which really isn't the case. Healing and change takes, I mean, it's a journey, can take a long time for people to heal. And there's a lot of similarities from what's happening with psychedelics in the media with Prozac in the 90s. I think of just kind of this emphasis on this is the big thing. Psychedelics are the big thing that will heal you. We need to push this forward, which I think is in one way helpful because I have seen firsthand of how these medicines can really change people's lives for the better. But it's important that we don't give people false hope and false expectations. And there's really this emphasis on the integration process of what you're doing day to day to really help yourself heal and make the changes that you want to make. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I asked that question partly because I see a lot in the news that this type of treatment is kind of growing and expanding, but also it is showing up on reality TV and, people are engaging in these therapies and it's being televised and portrayed, but I don't think you ever get to see kind of the full experience, right? You just get snippets because of editing and ratings and whatever it may be. But yeah, I was just curious what your thoughts were on that. How does
Yeah.
this compare to maybe like the MDMA that's going through the process right now for PTSD?
Hmm. So, like, compare like MDMA compared to like ketamine, do you mean, or just what
Sure.
do you mean by
Yeah,
that?
we could start there.
Okay. So, uh, just to kind of classify the different psychedelics, right now, ketamine, it's a Schedule 3 substance, which is what it's allows to be prescribed off label for psychotherapy reasons. MDMA, for example, is a Schedule 1 drug. Right, so it has to go through this FDA process and approval in order for people to legally use it within a psychotherapy setting. Now, this process has been going on for a long time. They first have to do first phase of research, second phase of research. Currently, it's on the third phase of research for using MDMA to treat PTSD. And what the timeline they're thinking is hopefully by around the beginning of 2025 now is kind of when they think the FDA will approve it to be legally used within a psychotherapy setting. There's It's kind of been getting pushed back over the years. Back 5, 6 years ago, they were thinking around 2022 is gonna become available, so it's really up to the FDA, and it's really kind of the first time where the FDA we're using drug MDMA with psychotherapy, so it's just something new that the FDA have been having to deal with because it's really focused on the psychotherapy. It's not so focused on just what the MDMA can do, and so that's just something that has been tricky, I believe, for the legal process to become approved. Is it's just something new that's been going through this whole process to become available. But yeah.
What are your thoughts on MDMA for PTSD? As someone who works with the ketamine treatment, like
Mm,
professionally, personally, if you want to share, what are your thoughts on it?
yeah. So MDMA is actually the first medicine that I started learning about really in depth and following a lot of the research and following a lot of just what it was being used to treat in the research. And what MDMA really can do for people within the session is when this traumatic experience that they occurred starts to come up in the present moment, it allows them to fully integrate all the different pieces of this memory into one complete picture. So it's not so fragmented. they're able to really be able to like experience the narrative and re-exposing themselves to it. What the MDMA does is it allows them to move through the fear and it allows them to have a clear perspective of the trauma. And so again, it's not so fragmented. They're able to clearly see this experience and this memory and experience the emotions, and they're able to cry and they're able to grieve. And the best thing about MDMA is they're also able to experience love and connection at the same time. They're able to change the narrative around this trauma memory that it wasn't my fault. This terrible thing happened to me, and it's terrible that it happened, but I don't need to live in fear of it every moment of my life. So it allows people to get that perspective shift that we were talking about earlier. It also allows them just to develop more compassion for themselves. I think that's a really big piece of it. Compassion for themselves that allows them to engage in less avoidance behaviors. I think that's a big issue with people that have experienced trauma or PTSD, especially by other people. There's a lot of avoidance. We're avoiding triggers, we're avoiding reminders. And when we can go through these experiences with MDMA and we can reprocess these trauma memories and change the way we think about them, and it can then change the way we feel about them in the present moment. Maybe we don't need to be so scared, or maybe we do feel scared, but we can still go to that social event or we can connect with these people that we want to connect with. So what MDMA does, it's a heart opening medicine. It really can connect us internally with this part of ourselves that wants human connection and love and really can allow us to kind of move forward with these feelings of love, kind of guiding our actions on a day-to-day basis.
Do the sessions look different? I think I remember watching the documentary on Michael Pollan's book, and they maybe go through, maybe I'm mistaken that it's not MDMA, but that they're like in a room, like sleeping or there for a long period of time. Is that correct?
Yep. So with MDMA, the sessions are about 8 hours, and typically in the
Okay.
research studies, people stay overnight. So that's the other thing is these different psychedelics, the length of the effects are different. Ketamine, it's 2 to 3 hours. MDMA, it's about 8 hours, sometimes 10 hours. Psilocybin mushrooms is about 6 hours to 8 hours. So these MDMA sessions are pretty lengthy. They're pretty long, which I think is important because once more of these psychedelics become available, not everyone has like a whole day to take off and the next day also, right? So that's one thing that I love about ketamine is people can have an experience, but they're pretty much back to their normal selves after 4 hours or so, and they can do some everyday duties if they need to. With MDMA, these sessions are a lot longer. There's a lot more processing that occurs. So there is a difference in the length of the effects, these different psychedelics.
Okay. Do you foresee in the future venturing into this type of treatment once, if and when it's approved?
Yeah, so that's really kind of the goal of our clinic is once these other psychedelics are approved, we want to start incorporating them into our practice. And that's what a lot of the clinics just around the country and, that have ketamine assisted psychotherapy clinics is we're already set up for the most part for when these other medicines become available.
Okay.
So it's just kind of a waiting game. And that's kind of the future goal is to have just all these different options available for people. Ketamine assisted psychotherapy, MDMA assisted psychotherapy, psilocybin assisted psychotherapy. Psilocybin mushrooms is kind of the next one in line that is looking to be FDA approved. And then that's kind of the ultimate goal is then to have these different psychedelic medicines to be available for people in their unique situation, whichever one we think might be most beneficial to them, what they're looking to change and heal from.
Okay. What does it look like from a dosing standpoint? I feel like, we hear about people using mushrooms and LSD and Molly and whatever the other street names are. And I know in ketamine you're using kind of like the sub anesthetic dose.
Mm.
What is, say for psilocybin, what is the therapeutic dose? Is it much higher? Is it similar to what people are taking recreationally? Is it just a
Yeah,
guided part of therapy that helps it along?
Yeah, this is a great question. So the exact dose, it really depends if we're looking at like the actual physical mushroom plant, the exact amount you would use is different than if it's chemically made in a lab. So if we're talking about dried mushrooms, the actual mushroom, which is typically used recreationally, People will use anywhere from on the low end, maybe 1 to 2 grams to kind of get more of a mild, moderate effect. Sometimes the higher doses, people might move into the 3 gram to 5 gram range, but it really depends on each person and their sensitivity to the psychedelic and their mindset and the environment that they're in. Some people can have big, massive experiences off of a lower amount of mushrooms. Some people might take a lot of mushrooms and they might not feel the effects that much. And it really gets tricky because there's so many different strains as well. So it's kind of hard to really kind of be specific on the dosing. But the important things really to kind of focus on is the person's context that they're in, their environment they're in, their intentions for it, as far as kind of how the effects will impact them.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if that exactly answered your question, but it's
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Where do you kind of like hope or see the future of drug assisted therapy going?
Yeah. So I hope it becomes more accessible to people. It's a very expensive treatment. And at our
Yeah.
clinic, we're very intentional about trying to make it affordable for people. It can get expensive. We offer reduced rates. I would love for it to also become more accessible to communities of color and other people outside of the white population because a lot of the research is focused on middle class white people who have more access. And so I would love for it to become more accessible to other communities and to find ways for it to be cost effective for people. And in a perfect world, we would also look at all of the social issues that are driving a lot of mental health problems, right? When we look at our basic needs needing to be met, food security, financial security, all of these other stressors that come from a world where our basic needs aren't always met. So I would love for these psychedelic medicines to be used in the context of holistic healing and social change as well, right? When a lot of people's mental health problems are due to social issues, psychedelics can't change social issues. They're not going to give people homes. They're not going to give people food. They can help people heal, but we really need to look at kind of the larger social issues that might be driving people's mental health symptoms. So I would love for the future to kind of look more at that context, how we can change social systems to help people, and then also how we can kind of focus on the therapeutic relationship as well to help people heal and change. So kind of I'd love for the psychedelic field to kind of take this larger perspective on kind of the social changes that need to occur.
Is any of it right now covered by any insurances?
So it kind of gets tricky when we are
Naturally.
working with ketamine. Yeah, the preparation and the integration sessions we use insurance for. We can use insurance for
Okay.
part of the ketamine sessions. So we can make it pretty affordable when we're able to accept people's insurance for part of the treatment. And what we do at our clinic is we have different tiers. We have our standard rate tier, a middle tier, and a lower tier for payment options, and we just let people choose what feels
Okay.
right to them. If it's still not affordable, we work with people because we really do believe in this work and this medicine, and we really do want to make it accessible and affordable for people.
Yeah. How many clinics are operating in Minnesota? Is it quite a bit?
There's not so there's with ketamine, there's about maybe 10, a little under 10 ketamine infusion clinics where people are
Okay.
just going in, just getting ketamine, no therapy involved as well. There's probably about 5 or 6 clinics that offer ketamine assisted psychotherapy. And so it's growing up until about 3 years ago. There really were no ketamine assisted psychotherapy clinics. It was just ketamine infusion clinics. And so there's more emphasis on the ketamine being used to assist the therapy process. So there's becoming more available at our clinic. We're starting to offer training to clinicians. So we really want to get this therapy more available to people. We're really open about consulting with clinicians that want to get involved in this work and helping them train and learn, being able to offer this in their practice. So hopefully in the future there's more clinics that are popping up so more people can get help.
Yeah. I know that a quick Google search will likely light up with places, but how do people generally land in your office? Is it we've exhausted all other options? Is this kind of the first route they've taken? Is it a mix?
Yeah. So our clinic, we're really about organic growth. So we don't do like a lot of marketing or advertising. So
Okay.
it's a lot of kind of word of mouth, referrals from other therapists. So a lot of the people that reach out to us, most of the times they heard it from a friend or their therapist referred them, or maybe they looked us up online and kind of heard about us. So it's a lot of people that have kind of just done some work to find us. And usually then when they reach a lot of people that, yeah, have tried other therapy options that just haven't worked out for them and they want to try something new, or they maybe they are interested more in different types of therapies outside of the kind of the conventional standard therapy. So people that maybe are just looking for something different or something new and heard about it from a friend or their therapist referred them is typically how people kind of their clinic.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. And I imagine it's been successful, the organic growth? Good.
It has been. It has been.
Good.
Especially we're in our 3rd year and things are really starting to come together. So we've taken a very
Okay.
intentional, kind of slow process, especially because this whole field with psychedelics is new and we really want to
Yeah.
make sure we're acting in an ethical and a safe way. And it's worked out very well for us.
Awesome. Congratulations. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Should
Thank you.
What is one maybe like key piece of advice or takeaway that you want to leave for the listeners?
One key piece of advice or takeaway. Key piece of advice would be to really focus your time and attention on what is important to you and really getting clear with your values and how you want to live your life and the person you want to be. And really be intentional about creating very small actions that can build around these core values. Really focusing on community aspect because we need each other and it's very important to develop relationships with people where there's a sense of safety and trust and you can manage conflict, and really healing within a community is so essential and important. So to sum that up, figure out what's important to you and pursue that passionately. And my favorite quote that I say myself is embrace your fears and follow your heart.
I love it. What great advice. Lastly, before we wrap up, where can people find you? Where can they find information about your clinic, about the treatment? And I'll put it
Yeah,
all in
so
the show notes too, so it'll be linked, but you can tell them.
okay. So we have a website, catalystinsightcollective.com. We have a lot of information on there. We also have an Instagram, which I believe is catalystinsightcollective.com. We also have a YouTube page with probably 20 different short videos about that just kind of explain this type of therapy and treatment. And those are kind of the main ways to find us online. We always tell people if interested in this type of therapy, just reach out to us. We do an initial phone consult. If you're a therapist who's wondering if a client would benefit, please reach out to us. We're very open about sharing knowledge and information and consulting and collaborating and kind of getting this type of therapy out there.
Okay. And is that really kind of the first step is reaching out for that call?
Yep. So the first step,
Okay.
if you're interested, is just reach out. We have a contact form on our website, or you can just email us and just say, "Hey, I'm interested in doing ketamine therapy. I want to learn more about it." We'll get back to you right away. Do an initial phone call, figure out if we think this could be helpful for you. Kind of learn about what you're wanting to get out of therapy, and then we discuss next steps. So first step would just be reach out, and we'll reach back out to you and go from there.
Great. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you for
Yeah.
giving me the space. I did a lot of talking today, and this whole
No.
time I've been kind of wanting to ask you questions, but you were asking me questions, so I hope I wasn't talking too much.
That's
But
okay. We
this
can
was
plan
great.
for another time.
Okay,
Yeah. No, this is great. This is super informative and educational. And I think a lot of people are very fascinated about this type of treatment and kind of where the trajectory is for kind of psychedelics and drug assisted therapies. And it's really helpful from a personal and professional standpoint too, to know what else is out there, like for my clients, for other people I may encounter in the world, and just different ways that we can really help support people through their mental health and really integrate them back into like a whole happy human. So thank you for joining me. And it's been a pleasure to have this conversation with you.
hope you found today's episode educational, insightful, and supportive. I definitely did. What a fascinating conversation Eric and I had. If you would like to schedule with Eric or follow him on social media, please find the links in the show notes. Again, thank you for listening, and please take care of yourself today.